Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot and Penrite Oil. Hello and welcome to another interesting episode of Classic Restos. Of course, not possible without the continued support of Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot and Penrite Oil. How good is Shannon's Insurance? In fact, when you stop and think about it, where would we be without them? They offer enthusiasts just so much. Whether you have a bike, a car, a truck, house insurance, contents insurance, Shannon's offer you so much more. Why not pick up the phone and give them a call on 134646 or see them online at shannons.com.au. If you have a legendary GM or Ford classic American-made vehicle and you'd like to rebuild it, National Parts Depot will have the part for you. In fact, a 3 million part inventory awaits you. Visit them online at npdlink.com for more information. And don't forget to ask them to send you one of their catalogues. You know, I get excited about good companies and I get even more excited when they're associated with Classic Restos. When it comes to oils and coolants, the quality of Penrite oil is unsurpassed. Now, Penrite can be contacted at penriteoil.com.au or found at your local retail parts stockist. Penrite, it's simply a better class of oil. And on today's show, I have travelled to Grosse Pointe Shores in Michigan to show you the home of some iconic people that have helped to form motoring legacy as we know it today. Welcome to the mansion of Edsel and Eleanor Ford. But before we go in, this building behind me is not the mansion. This here is their garage. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford house tells the story of the home life of a prominent American family. The Fords were cultural, social and economic leaders in an era of great optimism, as well as a turbulent time of economic depression and world war. They were nationally prominent and they owned more than one house, but Southeast Michigan was their home. The house was designed by Albert Kahn to resemble a cluster of Cotswold village cottages, complete with stone roofs, vine-covered walls and lead-paned windows. Strolling through the thoughtfully decorated halls, visitors come face to face with a stunningly diverse collection of art, antiques and furniture that reveal the Ford's progressive and educated tastes in art and design. The Ford house grounds are a work of art in their own right, designed by famed landscape architect Jens Jensen. The meadow, rockwork and water components appear to be almost completely natural but were meticulously planned. The estate provided a place for the Fords to relax, raise their children and pursue personal interests, shielded from the demands of their public lives. It's surreal being here. It's like as though they've organised a family barbecue and we've turned up and they've forgotten about us. This is the first part. As soon as you enter, this is the garage. This is what you're greeted with when you walk in here. Absolutely amazing stuff. There's a steel turntable there where Edsel would drive a car in, turn it around and drive back out again. Beside me here, a 1935 V12. There's an audio system here with the exact sound of the engine. Have a listen to this. Well, if that ain't music to your ears, nothing else is. With me now, we have the curator here. We have Josephine. Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. What a privilege this is.
We're delighted to have you here in the historic garage at Edsel Eleanor Ford House.
Thank you very much. The story of the Continental, such a strong mark of a brand. It's continued for so many years. Tell us the story of how the Continental first came about.
It was for a vacation. Edsel Ford decided to create a car that was long, lean, low, and what he described as continental for his Florida holiday.
And from what I'm led to believe, it was such a success that it then turned into a production car.
Exactly. When apparently his neighbors and everyone in Florida saw it, loved it, and he came back with orders for the car.
What were some of the bold features back in the time that took on in your eyes? Why was it such a success?
I think the kind of streamlined, he worked with E.T. Bob Gregory, and you almost see like a boat form going through the water. At least I can imagine that. The kind of streamlined flowing, the minimal foot entrance, and then and this particular car, a push button, and then of course the exposed rear tire.
Yeah, I mean, it looks very, very stylish and sophisticated at any angle. Josephine, the push button in the door, so unique.
Yes, and it makes this a transition from the original car that Edsel had built.
Out the back looks good too. I mean, that tyre, there's a lot going on out there.
I think it's beautiful from any angle, and a lot of people agreed. It was a favorite car of Frank Lloyd Wright and a lot of movie stars in Hollywood.
It's incredible too to think we're in snow country here. It's a convertible and a two-door.
Yes, well, as I mentioned, probably a vacation or a wonderful car to drive on a beautiful summer day like today.
That's gorgeous. While we're in here, we'll have to comment on the private car that had the chauffeur just over to our left there. We're going to have a talk about that.
Yes. Huh? I think Chris will share a few things about that car.
Right. Have a look at this. Moving through, we have Chris now. Chris, welcome to today's show, the Classic Restos edition, Detroit.
Well, thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Chris, this is a marvellous car here, the private car of the Fords. The first thing that caught my eye was Edsel's letter of request there in the design for what he particularly wanted.
Sure. This is a 1934 Brewster Town car. 1934, Brewster bought 135 V8 chassis from Ford and constructed the bodies for them. Edsel had very specific requests in regards to this car, where he put a V8 grille on the automobile versus the heart-shaped grille that Brewster had put on it. Very firm beliefs in his styling.
So distinctive too, and to think that the actual car is still here. It's as though we're just waiting for Edsel to walk on over.
Well, this is one of his favorite cars for the family. They had this car from 1934 to 1940. It was a favorite of theirs.
And the chauffeur, it's good to see he's still with us.
Right. Arthur Fauser was the Ford chauffeur. He lived here in the complex that we're in today. Was a loyal staff person for the Fords for many years.
I would have assumed they would have looked after those people very well.
They did. They were very, it was almost like a family for them.
Speaking of family and people trying to get close to the family, the street out front, were they bombarded by people virtually wanting to walk in and like everything, wanting to meet them, down to, can I get a job at the Ford plant? I mean, they must have had a lot of that.
Well, there were always the occasional situations where people would drive in unexpected. The chief of security, Tom Laughlin, lived on the other side of the Gate Lodge complex and was working pretty much 24/7 and protecting the family from cases like that.
It's incredible. Chris, thank you very much for sharing that information on this beautiful car. It's just so unique being here today. Chris, again, thank you.
Thank you, Fletch.
Sure, the Fords, they lived at the top end. They were a wealthy family. But the kids, well, they had to have fun too, like other kids. You might remember billy carts and skateboards. Well, the Fords kids, well, they got these gasoline-powered cars. Look at the original home video footage playing, driving around the estate. How awesome is that? I hope you're really enjoying today's episode on Classic Restos, based around Detroit, United States of America. It's a big thanks to Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot, and Penrite Oil. Back with more after this. Josephine, we've just walked into the actual main estate here, the original home. Outstanding.
Yes, you're now in the residence of the Ford family, where they raised their 4 children.
This particular room we're standing in, would you like to explain this room?
It's a very important and special room in this house. It's Edsel Ford's study.
Wow, I mean, the original furniture still in place, the photos on the wall, the timber work, his own fireplace. It's, as I said earlier, it's like as though he's just going to walk through that door and come back in here.
It's very historic. The woodwork that you mentioned was actually imported from England, but it also reveals all the photographs and the flag and the artwork, reveals his interests in photography, in aviation, exploration, art, and we actually have a piece of his artwork.
Josephine, where are we now?
We're in the drawing room, which is the second largest room in the house, and it was very important for entertaining. In fact, this is where the Fords hosted the wedding reception for their only daughter, Josephine, and that was in 1943.
Okay, Josephine, we're into the modern room. Explain this room.
We're in a room that was redesigned in 1935 by Walter Dorwin Teague at the request of Edsel Ford, and it shows his interest and his passion in modern design. And it's also a big surprise to anyone who comes to visit us.
So there would have been a lot of inspiration created in this room a long time ago.
I would like to think so, but also a lot of fun. It was built as a games room, and we have in this room a one-of-a-kind Steinway. I can safely say it was built just for this room.
Simply amazing. Again, everything left intact. Wow, it's just certainly got an atmosphere. Josephine, we're now in the dining room. Wow, I mean, I am hungry at the moment. This is, I could just imagine the beautiful food that would have been served in here over the years.
Beautiful food on beautiful dishes and wonderful glasses, crystal to drink out of as well.
It would have been 5-star all the way. Even the table at the end there for the kids.
That's right. You notice there's a small table where the children ate until they turned 7, and then they could join the grown-ups. They were, of course, dressed for dinner.
And, of course, a dinner isn't a dinner in a beautiful, opulent dining room such as this without looking through the lead-framed glass out onto the water. Isn't that absolutely divine?
You're looking out at Lake St. Clair, and what's also kind of interesting about this room is there's no overhead lighting, no chandelier. You're dining with the Fords either by natural light, as it would be today, candlelight, or firelight.
The Fords would have had a 5-star lifestyle all the way, but would they have had their nights where no one was here? Would it just have been them?
I think Steph was always here, present, ready to bring a glass of water or whatever might be needed. Yeah. There are buzzers in all the rooms, which send the signal down to the staff areas of what might be required.
Wow. Hey, at home I got a piece of rope and I pull that and the lurch comes down.
We're in another modern room designed by Walter Dorwin Teague in 1935, and this is, as you might be able to guess, a bedroom. And it's a bedroom for their oldest son, Henry II.
The bathroom, the ensuite off to one side there, I just cannot believe the year that was made.
It was made in 1935, and most of our visitors can't hardly believe that either, because you could do it today and it would look fabulous.
It's the styling's done a full 360, it's done a full circle. I mean, that's what they're doing these days, going for the big size tiles. It looks as though it's been renovated 2005.
But we've left it untouched since 1935. The walls are actually glass sheets of glass.
It's just nothing but the best. Nothing but the best here. We've got a beautiful view of the garden outside, out onto the grounds, and I don't know, you just can't put words to something like this. It's just so brilliant.
I think you have to come back, and I think everyone else needs to come and see these spaces as well.
I agree. I think I do have to come back. Josephine, thank you so much. We'll have to end it there. I mean, this is not the end in terms of this residence. We've done what, 5%, 10%?
Not even, so you have to come back.
Well, I hope you're really enjoying today's episode so far. Wasn't the mansion of Edsel and Eleanor Ford absolutely spectacular? Well, you can't do Detroit without seeing this, Stahl's Automotive Collection. When you come to Detroit, be prepared to see a string of museums and car collections. It is certainly endless. We have Bill now, the curator at Stahl's Auto Collection. How are you, Bill?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm great. You got a good job, haven't you?
Well, Fletch, I think I got the best job in the world. I really do.
I'll tell you what, if you're on the broom, you do the best job. This is an awesome floor.
Well, I have somebody else going to do that.
You could have taken the credit then, Bill.
No, I don't like to lie.
Look, presentation's everything. These cars are encapsulated around each other's presence, and they all have a story to tell. A 1948 Tucker. You've heard me mention about the Tucker before. I really do like to go on about the Tucker because it competed against the big three, and as you know, Preston Tucker was really and truly knocked out of the ring. Here's one of the surviving cars. How did you come about getting this one, Bill?
This car was bought from Hyman's out of St. Louis, Missouri, but the car itself came from Stone Mountain, Georgia. It was in a small museum down there, and the gentleman that owned it actually got this one in the movie with, the Tucker movie. It was actually in there. Yeah. So, and I was at a car show with Mr. Hyman, and he asked me if I was looking for anything. I said, well, if you have a Tucker in your back pocket, I'll take it. And he says, I just happen to have one.
Let's look at some design features. For a start, we've got a rear-mounted engine.
Yes, you do. You got a 6-cylinder flat opposing pistons. Most people are under the misconception that it was air-cooled. It's not air-cooled. It's actually water-cooled. When Preston Tucker took over the company, the engine company itself, he had to reconfigure the engine to make it work well. Sure. At 6,000 feet in a helicopter, this engine stays cool. Yes. In a compartment at ground level, it doesn't stay cool. So he reconfigured, put a water jacket on it, and got it to work.
And plus, laying the engine horizontal too, it required an oil pan.
Yes, it did. It did. You didn't have the pressurized system that you did with the air craft engine.
Bill, horsepower, 160. You were alluding earlier that you thought it was more.
I think it's more like 190. Yeah. This car does not stand still when you get going with it. It doesn't. It's not slow on takeoffs. Once you hit that foot feed, you're gone.
Let's look at the body now. The crash zone on the passenger side. Now, that's an interesting concept. Tell us about that.
That was something that came out of the era of, Preston Tucker's, building stuff for the military. He had thought, if in the cars they had a place where they could protect themselves in a crash, people could survive better. So on the right-hand side, you have a big compartment. If they see you're going to be in an accident, you jump in there and you do the fetal position and you be safe.
Wow, hey? You don't need a seatbelt. If you've got time, just jump down under where the dashboard should be. What a concept. We've also got suicide doors here as well. That's a unique style. We've got lots of room in this car. Torpedo styling. I mean, I give it 10 out of 10. I've got such a soft spot for these cars.
Yeah, this car is probably going to be an iconic car for decades and generations to come. It's just such a beautiful machine.
The DVD boxed sets of classic Restos are available at classicrestos.com.au. Now, while you're there at the website, don't forget to check out the major sponsors. They're waiting to help you. They're incredible people to deal with. Give them a call. Hope you're really enjoying today's show. Back with more in just a moment. Bill, 1930 Cadillac. Opulence, the epitome. Who would have been able to afford this in the Depression? It's beyond me.
Well, this one would have probably been maybe a president, a very large businessman, a dignitary, somebody in that neighborhood. This is what they call a double cowl phaeton. And it has a second cowl, so it has that window that will come up. And if I was in the 1930s and I was working for this guy, I'd be happy he's driving it. And the reason being is because I'd be working for him. Absolutely. And that's what I told Mr. Stahls when he bought this car. He said, what kind of a mind picture would you have? And I said, that's exactly it. I think I have a great boss because he was smart enough to have a business going and helping me out and letting me work.
You'd think that it would represent some type of job security, wouldn't you?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. But a lot of people in the 30s that had the money didn't buy these because they didn't want rocks thrown at them. Sure. But there was those that did have it.
Well, they didn't know the road ahead either, did they?
No, there wasn't too much of a road. And it was very bleak. It was very hard. But when you look around at the 30 cars and you see all the great dynamics of them and the beauty of them, the artistry of them, and the willingness to not quit. Yes. That's what I look at when I see the 30 cars.
They're literally like rolling pieces of jewelry, aren't they?
Exactly. They're art.
So let's look under the hood here. We've got a V16. How long, how many years did the V16 run?
It run from 28 to 38. That was the last one.
Wow. So 10 years. The beauty of it, too, is you could have 8 misfiring and you're still in front because you got 8.
Well, you didn't really want that to happen, I guarantee you. I've seen that. That's pretty ugly.
we see it running now. This is just whisper quiet and just so smooth. I mean, it's not even moving. There's not even a hairline. It's incredible.
Well, actually, it's running a little rough right now because it hasn't been out running. If we just take this out for a half hour and run it around and bring it back here, you wouldn't even hear it. It's just a great, great car.
The interior as well. I mean, just it's just the top of the tree. It's just beautiful all the way, isn't it?
Right. Now, this car's kind of unusual because it was built in Pittsburgh. It was built by Fleetwood before it was bought and brought back to Detroit. And the reason I know that is because if you look at that windshield, it's V'd and they open up a wee bit. Yeah. And you get back here, when they started doing the same car, they were flat across. Yeah. So it's kind of it's a pretty girl. I like it.
Moving through, straight A Duesenberg.
Yes, this was a 1934, but they were all pretty much made in 1930. But when they were bodied, that's when they were plated, and that's when they were titled. So even though it was made in 30, it was still a 34 because that's when it was licensed and stuff. It had the straight 8 in it. The straight 8 was, I think my memory is correct, it's 396 cubic inch with 275 horse.
Wow. And back in those times, 275 horsepower. There's no doubt about it. Duesenbergs were an amazing vehicle, weren't they?
Yes, they were. They were the cream of the crop. They were like the Rolls-Royce of America. They competed with the Rolls-Royce in elegance and in workmanship and in mechanics, and they were just a great, elegant car.
It just goes to show the spotlight emphasis wasn't always necessarily on the big three.
No, it wasn't. Mainly, back in the 30s, if you had one of the big P's, which was Packard, Peerless, and Pierce Arrow, you were really somebody.
That's right. I mean, and the big three, I mean, Chrysler, GM, and Ford, I mean, they made an outstanding product for the working class man, for the average person to afford. Of course, when we get up into this realm of vehicle, where we've just entirely stepped up again, haven't we?
Right, because this car, let's say back in 1934, would run somewhere around maybe about $7,500. And that was a lot of money, Fletch. That was big money.
You could have bought a house and land back then for that.
If you had that kind of money and you found property, you could probably buy 100 acres, build a house, and have a nice Ford.
When you stop and think about it, there would have been people that would have gone into debt for that much money, and they would have spent most of their working life paying that off.
At that point in time in our culture, if a man was making $5 a day, he was making big money.
Bill, what sort of features are we looking at here? 1930 for the Duesenberg. Want to run through a couple for us?
Sure. This is an Arlington body. This is what they call a short wheel span, or dimension as far as between the two wheels. The Arlington body, there was only 5 of them made. It was a Durham-built car. It's a very elegant car. It's got the standard, luxuries that a Duesenberg has. But again, it's more like a sports car for a Duesenberg. So I don't know how to explain it. It's a great car to run. Yep. I took it last year to a d'Elegance down in Kentucky, and we have to go down through this tunnel and out. And so in the tunnel, it's got a cutout. You throw the cutout out, and it eliminates the muffler, and you can just hear it resonate, roaring, that big old engine roaring right down through there. And power. During World War II, they used to take Duesenbergs, cut the bodies off out of Willow Run, and use them for tugs to pull the planes around because they had so much power they could actually do it. So
that is incredible. Bill, I want to thank you so much for your time here today. This is just Put Your Toe in the Water segment on Classic Restos today, just to throw the camera around here, show people at home about Stahl's collection and just some of what you've got here. It's the type of place where you can get here in the morning and not leave till the night time.
That's pretty close to right. That's what happens to me.
Absolutely. It's disguised as work, right?
Yes. Yeah. We lie and say we're working really hard in here.
You don't work, you just turn up.
That's right. And then all my friends show up with me and they say, hey, can we help you with that? So.
That's great. Bill, thanks again. And just when you think you've seen everything, how's this for Industrious? The only problem with this is that it puts 4 violinists out of a job. Don't forget to like Classic Restos on Facebook. Facebook.com/Classic Restos TV. And episodes can be seen at shannons.com.au. classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot and Penrite Oil.